everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you guys all about the books that I read in the month of May, and I actually surpassed my last month by reading one extra book. So this month I read 13 friggin' books, and I'm super impressed with myself. Like, I cannot believe I read 13 books. I can't remember the last time I read that many books. So they're all like scattered because sometimes I keep them if they mean something, if they're like 4 or more stars. Sometimes I don't want to keep them, and so they're all scattered around, so I just have my cards today. Because I do have 13 books, and so this isn't like, you know, like a 25-minute long video, I'm just gonna say the name of the book, the author, and a few thoughts on the book, and then what I rated it. So the first book that I read is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and I liked the story. It was okay. I was more interested in learning about the tints and stuff than I was the actual story. Bailey, the character Bailey, I felt it was very convenient of him to be thrown into the story. I only rated that book 3 stars. The next book that I read was And I Darken by Kiersten White, and I absolutely loved this book. I loved Lotta, like her just being unapologetically ruthless, you know, as a female character in this time period. She went for what she wanted, you know, and I loved her character. She's just really badass, and I loved her. And then Radu, my heart broke for him. Then Mehmed, Mehmed, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it was really interesting to see how his character grew, and I ended up rating that book 5 stars. Next, I read Now I Rise, the sequel to And I Darken by Kiersten White. Again, I loved Lotta, I loved Radu, I loved seeing the different places that they went to. Wachalya, probably pronouncing that wrong, and then when they were all going to Constantinople to pretty much, you know, take it for the Ottoman Empire, and it was just really interesting. Again, my heart broke for Radu. I hope in the 3rd book he finds some peace. He almost was close, but again, 5 stars. Next, I read The Waking Land by Cally Bates, and I will have a spoiler-free review up in case you're interested in you know, seeing my thoughts on the book. It was a good story. There was some stuff that I didn't like, and only 2 people in the entire book used magic, and then there was a spoiler, like a character like spoiled a twist in the book, and I was just like, okay, whatever. But I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. Next, I read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. It was a decent story, I guess. I thought it was going to be a bit more fantastical than what it actually was, and I found myself wanting to know more about the stories than the characters, like the main characters in the book. I mean, if she comes out with a collection of short stories from the hinterlands, then I'll probably read it. I rated this book 3 stars. Next, I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I loved this book. It was a really, really good book. I have 2 points that I do want to talk about, so if you have not read the book, I'll hold up 1 for 1 point and then 2 for the 2nd point, and then when I put my hands down, that'll be it, so you don't get spoiled on it if you haven't read it yet. The first thing that I didn't quite like about the book was that there was the almost romance between Jude and Cardan. He was an absolute dick to her, like total D-bag to her, and I don't think that should have happened at all. It's like that whole thing where, like, people will tell their daughters that a boy's picking on them because he likes her, kind of thing, even if like he's very violent towards her even then, and it's a no-go for me. And then the second problem that I have is that Jude got so unbelievably angry at her sister Taryn because of Locke. Like, Locke was playing both sides, and instead of getting mad at Locke, she got mad at Taryn. I mean, Taryn told her, she was like, I can't tell you because I promised, you know, like, I understand why she didn't tell Jude, but I mean, kind of, the hints were kind of there, and it was just really, really wrong. Just, I don't think, you know, like, Locke should have got punched in the nose or something, and not Taryn and Jude fighting. So I did end up rating The Cruel Prince 4 stars. Next, I read The Burning Sky by Sherry Thomas. It was a decent story. A little bit I don't know. The romance was kind of meh. My favorite character out of the book was Titus, Prince Titus. I loved seeing the different faces that he used throughout the story, and he was very smart. He's a very, very smart, well thought out character, and I liked that. I really enjoyed it. So I did end up rating this book 4 stars. Next, I read the sequel, The Perilous Sea. Just continues to follow Iolanthe and Titus as they're trying to kill the Bane, pretty much, some new characters. I absolutely loved the banter between Iolanthe and Titus when they were like, their memory was gone. I loved it. It was really interesting, and it felt more real than the kind of romance in the first book. So I ended up rating this book 4.5 stars. And then finally, I read the 3rd book, The Immortal Heights. Don't want to say too much because of spoilers, but it was good. The epilogue wrapped things up nicely, but I got to the point where like I was reading like the climax, and then it started falling, and I kind of felt lost. I was like, am I missing something? I'm pretty sure there was more to this story than this, and I still have that feeling of did I miss something? So I only rated this book 3.5 stars. Next, I read A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thomas. This is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. Sleeping Beauty is she's awoken by a kiss 100 years after she falls asleep, and kind of see like where her kingdom goes, how she's adjusting to this new time, things like that. There was nothing really extraordinary about the story. It was okay. I ended up rating it 3 stars. And then I read the 2nd book, Kingdom of Ashes by Rhiannon Thomas, and it just continues to follow Aurora and her journey to find more about like her powers and something about dragons and stuff like that. It was a decent ending. I think there's a 3rd book, but I couldn't really find anything. I know Rhiannon Thomas has a book called Long May She Reign, but I don't think this is a 3rd book for this series. And I ended up rating it 3 stars. Next, I read Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rash. Follows a 16-year-old girl and 7 other refugees from a kingdom called Winter. This world is beautiful. There's the Winter Kingdom, Summer Kingdom, Spring Kingdom, and Autumn Kingdom. And then you have like Rhythm Kingdoms, and it all makes up like Primordia. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful world, and I just loved this world. I ended up rating it 5 stars. And then finally, I read the sequel, Ice Like Fire. So Winter is freed from Spring's rule, but they find themselves indebted to the King of Cordell for helping them. A dark and familiar power emerges that forces her to flee far away from her kingdom. So I'm really excited to see where the 3rd book ends up. I really loved this 2nd book as we got to see more of the seasonal kingdoms and the rhythm kingdoms, and just how they're different from each other, things like that. And I did end up rating this book 4.5 stars. Alright guys, that is it for my May wrap up. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Maybe consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. My Twitter and Goodreads accounts are linked down below in case you want to follow me on any other social media. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.